every dad needs to watch this because the potential for us to really mess up our kids is pretty high. Not everyone knows my background. I grew up having a pretty serious eating disorder where how I looked at food wasn't exactly good, and how I looked at exercise wasn't exactly good either. And as a dad now, I really pay close attention to these things, and I'm not perfect, not by any stretch of imagination, but I've come up with some things that have helped me model behavior properly so that my kids develop good habits, have a healthy relationship with food, but still have a good grasp on what they need to do to be their best self. So one of the first things that I pay attention to is when I'm looking at my children and I'm teaching them how to eat properly and I'm modeling, I teach them that food is fuel. Now, it sounds so basic, but this mantra has become very, very important in our household. We are so inclined to develop tribalism around food, so much so that we instill these negative thought patterns on our children. And if we get back to the basics of food is fuel, it covers a lot of bases. It covers the bases of energy balance. Hey, if you eat, you might want to move. It also covers the basis of, hey, if you have sugar and that makes you feel super energetic, that's not the end of the world. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but you should maybe use that energy. If you have something and it makes you feel sluggish, then maybe you shouldn't eat that anymore. And by developing these intuitive feelings towards food, they can develop a healthy relationship, because part of the problem that we face today is our kids are bombarded with hyper palatable food and crazy signals that are altering our neurobiology, altering their neurobiology, where they don't know what feeling they're getting from food because they're getting it from every different direction: fats, sugars, proteins, this, that. So they don't have a good, keen awareness of how food is making them feel. But if you can teach that at a young age, then they understand. You know what happens? I let my son occasionally have some sugar. I'm not gonna just keep him away from being a kid because he's gonna rebel harder if I do as he gets older. So he has sugar every once in a while and he says, "Dad, I wanna go run around the block." That's the stimulus that I want. Food is fuel. Let's learn how to be that way. Let's learn to listen to our bodies. That's really important. The next thing, I pay attention to nourishment versus performance. I think far too often we tend to put pressures on ourselves and put pressures on our children to be very results oriented. This is how I grew up, unfortunately. And on one hand, it shaped who I am today, but on the other hand, it put a lot of pressure on me as an adult to continue to kind of carry on this results-oriented personality. A results-oriented personality is great for achieving specific successes and little things like that in life, but for a kid, it doesn't exactly teach them what they need to build that house throughout life. I want to give my kids the bricks that they need to build that wall, to ultimately build that house that sticks with them when they're in their 30s, and their 40s, their 50s, throughout their entire lifetime. So I teach them about, hey, this color food does this. Hey, this kind of food does this, and get them excited about the feelings that they get when they eat that. So about nourishment and feeling versus performance. Even though I am a performance guy, and even though as a dad, I want my kids to kick ass on the field just as much as the other dads do, I try to focus on how they feel first. Next up, you need to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on them. And with that comes setting adequate boundaries. We have to remember, again, that our kids just model our behavior. Okay, and if they see, even subconsciously, that our relationship with food is deranged, they will pick up on that. They are much more in tune with what we do as parents than we give them credit for. And by setting proper boundaries and being able to take time for ourselves, then we can model better behavior. We can be more aware of what we are doing. What I mean by that is, if you have to take time for yourself to go work out, if you have to take time for yourself to go do something good and healthy for yourself, your children will see that. So how many times have you seen the parents that say, I just don't have time to work out, I don't have time to do this, I literally just don't. Well, make time. Even if the kids are with you in your living room, trust me, you can make time. My wife and I don't have any help. We don't have any family close by. We find a way. Maybe it's our living room, maybe it's our garage. The kids see us setting boundaries to do something for ourselves, And it teaches them that they can prioritize themselves even when times are tough. And they can establish these routines and establish boundaries that allow them to be the best version of themselves. Now, with that modeling, how you electively eat, how you choose snacks is really important. If you are a binge and purge type mentality where you just eat whatever you want and then aggressively reduce calories or whatever, that doesn't exactly teach them. They want to see you eating responsibly. It's so cool to watch the foods that my son opts for because he's learned about nourishment and then he opts for what I opt for. I reach for macadamia nuts. He wants macadamia nuts. I reach for water. He wants water. I reach for something that has more fiber in it compared to something that's calorically dense with sugar. My daughter says, hey, that looks a lot better. I want to have that. It just naturally happens that way. They model after us, especially when they're young. Speaking of macadamia nuts and snacks, today's sponsor, I put a link down below. It's called House of Macadamia. So if you like macadamia nuts, maybe your kids like macadamia nuts, I will honestly say the reason that it's a relevant sponsor on this video is my kids love their macadamia nut bars. So they are literally made with macadamia nuts as the first ingredient. And everything is harvested in South Africa, and then it's processed less than an hour's drive from where it's harvested and grown. And it's all about supporting the farmers in South Africa as well. So a really good foundation of this company, doing some really big things, but also straight up macadamia nuts. We've got awesome salsa flavored ones, onion flavored, regular salt flavored, just basic ones. Also, anytime you order through that link down below, you save 20% off, plus you get a free box of 100% macadamia nut creamer. Literally the only ingredient is macadamia nuts in this stuff. So you add a little bit of this to your coffee, or you mix it with water and you reconstitute it into a macadamia nut milk. If you look at macadamia nut milks at the grocery store, it is disgusting the amount of things that they add into it. This is literally just macadamia nuts. And if you mix it with water, you've got macadamia nut milk. If you add it to coffee, you've got a creamer. So check them out, get your free box of macadamia nut creamer / milk, however you want to use it, and 20% off using that code and link down below in the description. When I want to encourage my kids to work out, we work out outside. They see me working out outside, even if I'm bringing dumbbells. Okay, now what do I mean by this? Why do we need to do outside? Because if it's play, it doesn't feel like work. If you're out working out and you're in the sun, tell me that doesn't feel like play compared to locking yourself in the gym where it feels like work. Now, when you're talking about children, they're very malleable. And the stimulus response, that Pavlovian response that they're going to get from a workout is going to be probably much more sensitive than yours as an adult. What I mean by that is the experience that they have with fitness is going to trigger a result a lot more than it is with you as an adult. I want my children to develop discipline as much as the next guy. Okay, but instilling discipline in a child by trying to push them into something and trying to teach them the basics of, earning a reward is a lot more complex than we think. They need to learn it for themselves. That dopaminergic system, that entire dopamine pathway, is all based upon immediate work and immediate reward. Long-term goals and long-term gratification doesn't solve it for a kid. They need short-term reward. And when they are outside playing and it's fun, the reward is, I am working hard and this feels good and I'm having fun and it feels great. And that's all a synergistic system there that's making them feel great and want to do it again. So yes, it's all about teaching them to earn a reward. I understand that. And don't get me wrong, I think that we can still utilize food as a thoughtful reward because it's our innate nature to work for food. So if my kid busts out a 5 or 7 mile hike at 5 years old, I'm okay with letting him have a little bit of ice cream because he earned it. It's not establishing an unhealthy relationship with food, it's understanding dopaminergic signaling and pathways. You have to have fun. It's simple Pavlovian responses. So if you're locking them up in a gym and it's miserable and they're just on iPads all the time or something, that's not what they want. You want to teach them that visceral feeling of working and reward. On the opposite side of that, still within the same vein, they need to like who you are when you're healthy. I've talked about this in like relationship situations, spouse, significant others, whatever. If you make a dietary change, they need to see that they like who you become when you make that change. So if you go and you start crash dieting and you become a grumpy jerk, your kids are going to say, I do not like dad when he's like that. So therefore, I do not like the diet. Therefore, as an adult, oh, I have bad memories with that diet. I almost want to revolt against it. If it's hard for me, I make dietary and physical training decisions to make sure that I feel good so that I show up as a parent so that their reaction is, wow, when he does this, he's a happy person. And then he's happy dad and I'm happy kid. And we're all a cohesive unit. And then the last thing, that's a very basic thing, and as simple as it sounds, I teach my kids about hydration from day one, as early as I possibly can. Because I am a firm believer that our signals get distorted, that we choose to eat when we're actually hungry. And it took me decades to retrain my mind that way. I would get hungry, so I'd eat. But in reality, I was actually thirsty. And then that's been seen in some of the literature where people actually get confused. Like when they drink water, their appetite chills out. So I teach my kids, hey, more often than not, drink some water. See how you feel. Oh, you want a snack? Have something to drink. And then see if you really want a snack. Because anyone that has kids knows that they have two stomachs. They have their meal stomach and their snack stomach. And it never ends. I'll see you tomorrow.